TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Derek. It's also TruthSeekah. Some people know me as that. Welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast. Excited, delighted to be with you guys. As always, listen, we're going to get deep. We're going to be talking about the now moment, the power of the now moment, how to create from the now moment, how to be present in everything that you do in the now moment. There's people who have become millionaires off of teaching you how to be present in the now moment. And I think, pun, now more than ever, we need to know how to be present right now. We got ideas about the future. We've got ideas about the past, and many of us live in the past, and we beat ourselves up and regret and what might have been and what could have been and what I should have done. And we also have futuristic ideas about things that we want to create and ideas about where we can go in life and traveling and projecting our ideas and our personas outside of ourselves. And we got some great ideas. Like, you kind of got to go there to get ideas, but you got to be able to bring all of that back to the now moment to create it. Other than that, it's just a cool idea. It's just a dream. But a vision without action is merely a dream. We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about past lives. Someone in my Discord yesterday was asking me questions in the community, questions about past lives and wanting to get more info. And I was like, if you want to get more info, definitely join the Thursday stream, because we're going to be talking about past lives as well. It's going to be good, man. Make sure you guys buckle up. Chat is open. We're watching the chat. Thank you guys for joining us live on the live stream. Thank you guys for listening after the fact as well on your favorite podcasting apps. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to all of the Patreon supporters, everybody who shows up to help bring this podcast to the table. Everything that I do, my new music that's coming out, everything that I do, it is listener funded, listener supported, and backed by many people who believe in the vision. And so I want to say a huge thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Everybody support my work via Patreon. You guys are amazing. You are co-creators. Thank you. It means so much. And so some of the latest patrons within the last week or so, we have two new people who just came on. Lydia Ann. Thank you, Lydia, for coming on. And just Wayne. Is that Brother Wayne that always calls in? There's like this guy, Brother Wayne, that calls in. I don't know if that's Wayne on here, but either way, let me know. But thank you guys for believing in the work and coming on to support. It literally means the world. If you'd like to support, go to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music. It's 200 plus songs. All the new stuff is already there. You also get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is tonight. It's our hangout sessions, Q&A, meditation, breath work, and really the community aspect to what we're building here. My guided meditations are at another tier, all of them. We do Sunday morning breath work. That's at another tier as well. So make sure you check it out, patreon.com/TruthSeekah. And then if you go to TruthSeekah.com, you'll also see some more updates there. We got the Mystic Circle going on where we do breath work there, and we have other teachers who host stuff during the week. We do monthly webinars, a bunch of really cool archive content there. All of that will be linked at TruthSeekah.com. Also, late November, I think it's the 20th or 22nd. I don't have my notes in front of me, but we have our retreat, Reset, Refresh, and Renew with myself and Illuminati Congo. So that's going to be going on in Mobile, Alabama, for those of you who need some R in your life, some reset, some refreshing, and some renewal. And if you want to tap in with us on a spirit journey, meditation, breath work, prayer, hiking, cacao ceremony, kundalini yoga, stargazing, CE5, we're going to do it all. We're going to cram it all in. If you want to be a part of that, go to truthseekah.com. All of the updates are available there, along with a lot more other stuff. The new album pre-order for autographed copies are there. The 8-week program that I'm launching again, the sign up is there for that. So make sure you check it out. If any of that interests you, go over there and take a look at it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, all the cool stuff that I mentioned at the beginning, the now moment, the past lives, we're about to get into it. My guest today is Michael Goddart. Michael, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast, brother. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thank you, Derek. It's really good to join you and be with you.
Good to have you. Like I said, I'm excited to dive into these topics and more that you bring to the table. And I think all of it is important. I think inquiring minds want to know, and they want to know for a reason, because they know that maybe there's something that they're missing out on with not being present in conversation, not being present in mindfulness and meditation. There's some keys and some tools that we've been given that a lot of people haven't even tapped into yet. So I just want to pick your brain about your story, your books, your journey, how you got the information, all of that. But first, let's start off for people who are brand new to your work, who haven't heard of you or any of your books and things like that. Just kind of give a quick overview, who you are, what you bring to the table, and we can start there.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Michael Goddart, and I've been writing really since I was a teenager, and meditating since I was a teenager. I really started my spiritual quest right after I turned 11. Right after we moved to California, to Marin County, when I was 10. Out of the blue, I started trying to contact the spirit world and do automatic writing and get messages from them. I started self-hypnosis. After I turned 11, I had been raising tropical fish since I was 5, so I was well acquainted with death. Every so often, a fish would go belly up, and I'd have to fish it out and flush it down the toilet. So I knew eventually I would go belly up, and somebody would fish me up and either send me into a fire of flames, or probably that, rather than get buried. So I really confronted the idea that I was going to die. And what came out of that is I wanted to make best use of my life. And I felt just this conviction within me that immortality was a true possibility if you found the right path. So I didn't want to die. I wanted to have basically an eternal consciousness of absolute bliss. So thus began my search when I was 11 years old. And I was lucky because my mother was a well-regarded artist showing all over the Bay Area. And we would go into the city, San Francisco, to art galleries. And after 20 minutes or a half hour, I'd ask her if I could slip away. And there was a metaphysical bookshop on Sutter Street. And there I'd pull down book after book, feeling that there was one book that was going to show me my path. Well, lo and behold, fast forward, when I came back from my year abroad in England, I've been searching with a friend since high school. We were after the exact same thing. And to tide me over while I was in England, I began a very well-known form of meditation, 20 minutes a day, twice a day, but that wasn't enough for me. I was meditating 4 to 5 times a day. So he came over just as he was going overseas. As soon as he walked in the room, he didn't have to say anything. I knew he had found what we were looking for. So I was initiated several months later, when I was 21, onto a very rigorous path requiring at least 2.5 hours of meditation a day. But this is the path that promised me what I was after. It was basically raising your consciousness, spiritualizing yourself, so you wouldn't have to reincarnate more than 3 more times on the planet. And of course, it came with a fully realized master. But along with that, Derek and everyone, since I was in high school, I was exercising my intuition, my powers of knowing through all kinds of means, tarot, dowsing, intuiting, and that became very active when my intestine died, and I had to go into the hospital to have much of it removed. And basically, I started having bowel obstructions constantly. I was living in the ER in the hospital. So I had to have finally another major surgery. And so actually, intuiting moment to moment became of paramount importance in my life because I had such a short intestine. If I ate a little bit too much or the wrong thing, that would trigger a bowel obstruction, which is indescribably painful. You can't even have a sip of water, you just keep vomiting. So basically, from 2012 on, I've been like intuiting all day long. So a few months after that surgery, my past lives started to come through. I had kind of a burning curiosity since I was initiated what my prior past lives were. I'd had many indications and many impressions from past lives, which are called Sanskaras. That is Sanskrit, basically for past impressions. That's the way I use it. And on the anniversary of my initiation in 2013, I literally began to recover my last 4 lives. And I had all kinds of triggers. There's so much that we are given that if we unravel it, if we pierce it, we can know. All kinds of experiences of deja vu, of intimations of who I was, where I lived, they were confirmed. Actually, everything that psychics had told me, I ultimately found out none of it really was true. I kept going. At first, I didn't think I'd have more than 20 double-spaced pages I could share with a few friends I trusted. But after I'd written, it actually was growing and growing. All of a sudden, one evening, I discovered I could know whatever I wanted to know about my past lives, and that I had prepared for this between lives. So I could also know what I couldn't know. So somebody comes up to me and asks me, well, who was I in my last life? Well, unless I knew the person at this point, I wouldn't know it. Well, I kept writing and writing. Eventually, I recovered 88 past lives, and that's 71 human lives and 17 animal lives. And I discovered how I'd been on a spiritual journey across thousands of lives with key evolutionary spiritual experiences that were spiritualizing me, preparing me for this very rigorous, fabulous path I'm on now. So what began as just burning curiosity turned into a 420-page book that really gives you the journey of a soul and mind. There's a lot of, I think, lack of clarification about who we are. Basically, our true identity is the soul, which is a pure drop or emanation of the Supreme Being, the all-knowing. And to operate on this plane, we have to take association with the mind. So we are a soul and mind. In my spiritual memoir, In Search of Lost Lives, the subtitle is Desire, Sanskaras, and the Evolution of a Mind and Soul. And mind and soul are joined with an ampersand, that's an and sign, and there's no space between them because I wanted to show how knotted together we are. A lot of people think of themselves simply as the mind, and that's what their identity is. Their identity is simply their thoughts. And basically, their minds are running amok all the time. They're not in control. As Derek was explaining so beautifully, you're dredging up the past and you're planning and fearing and apprehending as well as you can the future. You have very little consciousness of being in the now. And so I have been writing 15 articles and Q&As for In Search of Lost Lives through the media tour. And we only covered a few bases on that tour for various reasons. And so January of 2019, I really wanted to reach out and see who wanted an interview, but I've been really missing writing something new. So I literally just asked my higher consciousness whether there was a new book I could write, and I got an affirmative yes. And so basically I intuited the working title word by word, and the first word to come through was wisdom. So the working title of my new book, Anew Now, is Mastering Wisdom Daily, and the subtitle was 10 Keys for Achieving Equilibrium. And I was taking notes, and I just felt a pull to go to Florida and to see if there was really a book there. I've been taking notes in between interviews and other promotional activities. And I just started looking at my notes and I started revising it, and the book took off. And shortly after I started the first chapter, Anew Now came through. I thought, this is what I'm going to write about. And so I finished the book in March of 2020, just as COVID was hitting. And I was thinking, wow, people really need this, because actually I was not a bit surprised by the pandemic. It had been on my radar for quite some time. I didn't know when it would happen, but I was certainly thinking one would happen in my lifetime. So we went through a lot of crazy times. There was a lot of fear, a lot of disinformation, which is continuing, a very toxic political atmosphere. And what people really needed, I felt, were tools to empower them to navigate all the tough choices they had and just how to get through the day. I mean, I didn't want to order my food and have it dropped off in front of my house. I'm the kind of person who wants to go in the produce section and just know what my body wants to pull into it. So I went shopping, and it was quite an obstacle course to figure out, but I was able to do that. And I felt really at peace and at home going out, exposing myself to God only knows what. So the time of COVID was really kind of a golden period for me. What was hard at first was that all my local friends but one fell away. I only had contact very, very occasionally with one friend, and all the medical people I had to see for continuing medical challenges. But I was like living in my own bubble, writing Anew Now. So this has just come out, it's been published, it's already won 2 awards, the Independent Publisher Book Award and the Living Now Book Award. So this is really your guidebook to living as your most aware self, to finding and following the path to your authentic self. The thing I want to stress, there's so much outer phenomena out there. I'm writing a new Q&A called Become Paranormal. So the point is, so many people are focused and obsessed with all kinds of really fascinating stuff, which is good because it's good to expand your awareness. But the point I want to make is that each of us has the capacity to become paranormal. And what I mean by that is we have an unlimited capacity for growth, for love, and for expanded awareness. We have that power within us. And Anew Now is really your guidebook that you can have as a companion for the rest of your life to learn how to really discover and empower your 33 wisdoms. That's a mystical number of wisdoms. I write about the 11 loving wisdoms, the 11 guiding wisdoms and the 11 evolutionary wisdoms. And there's a lot of mysticism that is shared and illuminates the text. So this is what each of you have. I stress again and again, is the most precious gift, your life. So many of us had people we thought would be with us for 20 more years, 30 more years. They were taken. I mean, somebody can get in a car and they won't come back. Their next trip is to the morgue. So unless you're meant to know, you're not going to know when your time is up here, and you're going to continue. So the point is, how are you going to make best of your life? Are you going to spend all your waking hours playing games, which have its place, or watching soaps, watching sports? Everything has its place, but you can lead a really balanced life for you, an authentic life. I mean, one of my great loves is reading novels. I do that every evening. I read fine novels. So it's really a question of knowing who you are and really figuring out how you want to spend your life now and as you continue. And really, to have access to your higher powers of knowing, you have to learn how to be in the present. Most of us are human doings. The human being part of us is maybe 5% to 11%. One of my keys to achieving equilibrium that I explain is balance, being, having, and doing. And I take readers kind of through a process in which they can become aware to what extent they're being. So I've been talking for quite a while. Derek, feel free to jump in and ask me whatever you'd like. I've covered a lot of general ground here.
Oh yeah, I got so many questions. So yeah, you gave me a lot to work with, a lot of questions and details. So I've been contemplating death, been surrounded by death because of the pandemic. But it's something that I do for a living. I interview people about death, about past lives, about near-death experiences, psilocybin and plant medicine journeys that are like facilitated near-death experiences, and I find, and even with my affiliation with religion, of this, we have to pick a path. You have to get over the fear of death. And I'm saying all of that dealing with your own mortality. And when you go back to the beginning of your story, when you began to get into spirituality and actually look into a lot of practices that you did early on at age 11, was it the mindfulness of death that came first, again, with your fish and stuff like that? Did that stuff propel you to find an answer, or did you get into spirituality first and then you notice the death and things like that? Because I feel like all of humanity, we have to come to grips with our mortality, and everyone has a different narrative of what happens when you pass, So was that kind of your pursuit, to find an answer about what happens when
that was the main thing. I've been aware of death since I was 5 as my fish died. And right after we moved to Marin County, I really I felt there was this whole world within me I started to open up to. But we had a home religious experience because we couldn't afford to join our religious place at the time. They charged a lot of money. And by the way, true spirituality, nobody should charge for it. And I just knew that religion this lifetime did not hold the answers for me. I mean, 7 lives ago, I was a very well-established priest in Prague, and then a monk, a Carthusian monk. So I really, really was compelled to face the fact of death. And I used to go in the bathroom and lock the door and stare at myself and try to live through that experience. What will it be like? And I would just break into a cold sweat. My knees would buckle. I'd feel nauseous. I'd feel sick. And I thought, hold on, you've got to figure this out. And it was sort of like, I kept thinking, Derek, this is like this dirty secret nobody's talking about. It's like they're afraid to mention it. It's like, you're going to die, and nobody was mentioning it. It's like, what, is the world crazy?
Yeah.
And so many people spend their lives covering up that fact. They are constantly escaping. And your mind often needs rest. It needs to be rebalanced all the time. But if you spend your whole life, let's say you retire, now's your chance to really discover your spirituality. And you spend all day long in bridge, for instance, just to occupy yourself. Well, you're escaping really the truth. And who knows what's going to happen the next time. So I just felt compelled within me. I had this conviction that I could and would find the answer to life and death. I would find the key to immortality. I had a backup plan. It was like, if I couldn't achieve literal immortality, I wanted figurative. And I had been acting and writing plays since I was 7, which was a major Sanskara, which is discussed in my book. I had been a well-known playwright and actor 4 lives ago in Denmark. So I knew that was, that was like figurative immortality if I ended up making movies. But no, it was a very conscious search. And as I grew older, there were triggers. Like when I was 12, I was futzing around with my aquariums, and there was a local news broadcast and a feature story about a man walking from San Francisco to Salt Lake City all on his own, and he was a vegetarian. And boy, a light bulb went off in my head, and I just automatically knew I would become a vegetarian. And I asked myself, well, when would that be? And I got the answer: when you become legal, when you're 21, which happened. I became a vegetarian when I was 21. So I'm not advocating any particular path, any meditation, any practice. What I want to do is to empower people to empower their nobler selves. We have a higher mind and a lower mind, which I explain in the New Now. And most people I have found out, I can tune into them mentally. Their lower mind is predominant the majority of the time. In my spiritual memoir, In Search of Lost Lives, I pinpoint when my higher mind became predominant. It was when I was a Tibetan, 12 lives back, living in Tibet. I was a very, very high up government official, kind of like in the diplomatic department. And in that lifetime, I came across 2 monks that I realized, wow, these are humans that are truly evolved. So that really lit a spark within me. But, we're all on a path, and everybody is so unique, it's so individual. It's just, not everyone can recover their past lives. I've never had past life regression. A few times I've tried to be hypnotized. The hypnotist gave up. They couldn't do it. I guess my willpower was too strong to kind of give over my consciousness. But the thing is, whether or not you believe in reincarnation, it's going to happen. Even if you've done all these wonderful selfless acts of giving and giving and giving, and you're rewarded with a stay in your bespoke heaven, and you're there for seeming eternity, you don't know what you did in past lives. Now, in the West, for some reason, a lot of people feel that karma is ridiculous, or they just sort of play with the idea. But I mean, the fundamental law of existence is action and reaction from the mental planes on down. So everything you do is going to create a reaction. So if you murder 15 people, that's going to cause a reaction. And it's not going to be paid off in your current lifetime. You're going to have to come back to reap what you sow, which of course Jesus spoke about.
Wow. Michael, I got so many questions for you. I want to get clear on some more stuff because I'm a seeker. TruthSeekah podcast. Like, I really want to know. I really want to seek just like yourself, and I have so many more questions for you. We're gonna go to a quick break. On the other side of the break, I'm gonna talk to you about immortality. And you said some things that made it seem like everyone's not guaranteed, or maybe you stop reincarnating, and that's immortality. Don't answer yet. We got a 3-minute break. On the other side, we'll be back with Michael Goddart here in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. One moment. Wow, so the throne room meditation, man, this was just like a new level for me of creating encounter. Really, the process behind it is going in for myself, having an encounter with the Lord, tapping into the Spirit and getting in His presence, and really just petitioning the Father's heart and saying, God, what would you say to them? If I'm bringing these people with me here, if they're doing this guided meditation and we're going through this journey, we're having fun, we're seeing things, we're experiencing new feelings and emotions and sensations, what would you say to them? So it's channeling the Father's heart and relating it back to the people. So man, it's just a beautiful encounter. And I remember when I wrote the first one, I was so excited about it, and it was just God speaking to my heart. I was able to channel the Father's heart. And I would read the script to people because I was just so excited while I was working on it. And every time that I would just read the script, the presence of God would just invade me, and I just burst into tears and I couldn't even read it. I'm just like, let me copy and paste it and send it to you. But every time I listen to it, I'm immediately translated back into the throne room of God, and everything's good there. That's the place where everything is okay, where in the scriptures it says that we are to hide under the shadow of the Almighty. This is the throne room of God. This is the place that we can encounter for ourselves, but this is also a place in which we dwell. So a part of us is always there, and we have access to that. Now, there's people who have never encountered this before in their life, and it's a totally new experience for them. And almost every time I get a testimony back from someone, they just say how God wrecked their lives, that they didn't know what they were getting into. The next thing they know, they're in the presence of God, wrapped up in His glory. He's communicating His love to them, and it just totally wrecks their lives. So make sure you check out the throne room guided meditation visualization that I brought to the table.
There are things that go bump in the night. Pull up a chair. Don't be scared, for you have many friends unaware on the TruthSeekah podcast.
TruthSeekah podcast.
TruthSeekah.
Self-centered.
He seems like a nice guy.
You're listening to the TruthSeekah podcast. Now, back to the show.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Michael Goddart. We're talking about his books, A New Now, and we're talking about his book about reincarnation and remembering past lives and the search thereof. That question before we went into the break, mentioning attaining immortality. In order for you to attain it, I feel like it gives the notion that not everybody gets it, whether people are stuck in the loop of reincarnating or getting to spend eternity doing something else. Can you clarify that just a little bit? Like, what's the definition of attaining immortality on the other in the heavens, in those realms, or here on earth where you just get to keep coming back and or not existing, or what does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, earlier in the prior segment, of course, I was differentiating between soul and mind, and basically our true self is the soul. And there are many higher regions that exist out of the physical on finer and more subtle vibratory rates that you traverse in like your astral body, your causal body. But when you get to universal mind and you're able to pass beyond the causal region, you are no longer with your mind. You're just advancing in consciousness with your soul. So basically, our true home is with the Supreme Being. That ocean of bliss, divinity that has no name, that was always there in the beginning, that issued forth through the Holy Ghost, the Logos, the name, Shabbat. All cultures have given that inner creative force a different name. So we were sent out here as part of the creation. You know, everything has a soul, and that creative essence, even it's present in rocks in a very inert form. So when I talk about immortality, literal immortality, it means rejoining your creator, rejoining your source of being. And to get there, you really need a master, a guide, a guru, a saint who has gone there herself or himself, because you can get completely lost in the inner regions. I mean, without a guide. And guides can only take you as far as they've progressed. And guides, a true guide will not seek disciples or initiates. They are basically empowered to come for a set number of souls, whether it's I've come for 12 sheep or 12,000 or 1,200,000. They come for their own allotted souls and they recognize them. So when I came onto my path, I felt this presence join me, but I'd also felt it at key moments in my life. A few times I almost got run over by a car, for instance. I was in North Beach, San Francisco, not stoned, but I was just on a busy corner and I went to step out on the street, getting ready to cross, and I felt literally my body pulled back, and at that moment a car was by, which would have run me over. So I felt the presence of this guide, and when I ultimately went to meet the living guide, I first saw him through a window. I felt my head turn, his head turn, I met him. That instant I knew that that presence that had joined me was sitting there across from me. So, but not everyone is meant to come on a path of immortality this lifetime. The main thing is to seek truth. And that's what I so love about your podcast. I love the name, TruthSeekah. I feel with great emphasis, the highest calling is to be a seeker after truth, because the real unchangeable truth is the ultimate highest consciousness. So you ask the very intriguing and key question, are we all meant to go back? Well, to really know the answer, you have to go back. But the stories that have kind of come down through various saints that I feel are fully realized saints is that when the highest power asks souls to come into the creation so that power would project itself, not all of them wanted to go down and experience the creation. So the story goes that one night said, no, we're good, we're fine, we want to stay here. So those, the stories go, and this is from different saints who lived centuries apart, who had no internet, that 1/9 of the souls are marked. But the thing is, the only real ultimate law of creation is the law of love. So I feel, and I'd have to have God consciousness, which I obviously don't, to know this, but even if you're not marked, if you create this ardent desire to go back to your true home, who am I to say that won't happen? So when people experience feelings of loneliness, alienation, kind of a longing for your home, that's really the soul's feeling coming through. And I encourage people to honor those feelings, because that's really the soul coming through. It is so covered over covering by the mind that the soul isn't free. I mean, it has to go wherever the mind's karmas take it. Those karmas, are a weight on the soul. So it's sort of like, we're a pure needle and we have 5,000 tons of rust over us. And that rust has to be cleaned off and erased. That rust is all the karmas we've accumulated. And there's really only one way for all that rust to be vaporized, and that's through contact with the sound current, the logos, the word. And so that's why people seek masters who can initiate them into that practice. But you may not be there yet. The thing is to discover what your path is. I know people, spouses whose spouse is initiated and they love everything about a spiritual path, but it's not their time. They know that it's not their time. So what I do now is to help you develop that higher awareness. In the book, I ask the essential question, how can I live as my aware self? This lifetime may be all about music. I mean, developing yourself as a musician, that's fine. But also, it may be beginning to develop the spiritual side, whatever that is, whatever you're pulled to. The thing is to develop and trust your inner knowing because you have it. I mean, I'm thinking of changing my locations. I want to know where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. And I recently talked to a few friends. Now, years ago, I stopped asking people for advice because I knew the best answers were within me and I could obtain them. But it's just so funny how their own subjectivity completely colored their answer. You know, one said Honolulu, one said Ashland, Oregon, another Asheville, North Carolina. No, I'm going somewhere else that I'm pulled to explore, that I had wanted to explore in the past, but I put it off because I got, no, this is not the time. So we are in the present. Don't let yourself be imprisoned by the future or the past, but it's in the present where we can make the most progress. I mean, just remembering God every day, whatever you want to call that being. In my book, Anew Now, I use the term love source with the L and S capitalized. So call it love source because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, for sure. It's you know, I think it's one thing we could definitely agree on is that God is love, and that there's this peace and joy and bliss that we are all connected to now. To go back there, to travel back there, I think it is as simple as being in the now moment, and that's where that presence and bliss exists. But if you're living outside of that, and anxiety, fear, all of these are things that aren't real, they just exist in your head, and it's causing you to live outside of the now moment. But once you can kind of get past that or wade through it to be in the now, focus on the breath, the heartbeat, meditation, reading does it for a lot of us. Music does it. There's little pieces in everything. You know, we put it here and there, and something for some people it's video games. It's a way of escape where they don't have to focus on the fear and anxiety. And I'm not worrying about dying and when I play a video game or watch a movie, you know, so to escape those fears, to tap into the now. And there's many different ways. And I think that, you know, that's where bliss is. In the moment. Bliss isn't coming next week. Bliss is here now. Let's tap in. Let's allow it to flow through our bodies, through our breath and experience. And so when you're talking about, you know, having the answers within you, there's a place that like there's even just that notion. Yeah, all the answers are within. Okay, well, you got to go get them, or you have to at least wait and ask the question and then wait for the response. And so there's a process again with tapping into the now moment and things like that. So for you, was it just through mindfulness and meditation? Is it a particular one? Is it clearing your mind? How would someone do that to tap into that infinite source of love and to seek those answers within? And obviously sometimes you started there, I believe, in that meditation and mindfulness, and you get the answer the next day while you're walking down the street and you look at a billboard that is exactly the answer and response to the question you asked. And you're like, okay, wow, now everything's working together and I'm not a stranger in this land. I am connected. And it pulls you into synchronicities and the beauty of spirituality, of being mindful. Because if you wasn't mindful for the billboard, oh, it's just another billboard trying to sell me something. No. It's God, the universe, trying to tell me something and get my attention to get those answers. And if you don't ask the questions, you'll never get the answers. But what does that process look like for like a meditation if you was to start something like that?
Well, yeah, you covered so many great things.
You did too.
Which I love. But when you were first speaking in this part, it brought to mind my second book, Bliss, which is about it's 33 ways to awaken your spiritual self. It writes about the 33 essential spiritual strengths and virtues. And these are just simple things you can do during the day, processes, exercises to awaken your spiritual self and experience bliss. Now, in terms of having bliss, we can't make it happen. It's not something it's not a drug really you can take. True bliss, and there are of course levels and levels and levels of bliss. I mean, ultimately it's pure bliss, but we can have a wonderful taste of it. Now, it also brought to mind you can have well, when I meditate, I focus on holy names of rulers of regions, really to override my down-pulling mind. So it's always a struggle with the mind. And I can have maybe the most scattered meditation where I'm really struggling and not feel anything. And then an hour and a half later, all of a sudden, I think of God or something, and it just wells up within me, that bliss. So it's always a gift. We should never be demanding or expecting. Expectation is another name for the devil, which is a very loaded word, but it's something that brings you back down. So you want to be humble, and you can't really make yourself humble, but you can do things to induce humility. So for me, very much, it is meditation. It's being of service. I feel my writing is the best way I can be of service to people because I feel connected and I love to write. So to find that bliss, you have to learn to know yourself. And there's a whole chapter the whole book Anew Now is about learning to really know yourself, your better self, and developing that part of you. And through that, you'll have a higher and higher experience of life.
That's good. Being present and in that bliss, I mean, you would think of it again, not demanding, but that there's a formula. Like there's different fountains that you can drink from. You can drink from a wellspring of life or pure water, or you can drink from a stagnant mud puddle, and the results that you get after said experience is gonna alter and change the way that you feel. Yeah,
you have to find and discover what works for you, and what may be the absolute best focus for 13 months may stop being that focus. But I also very much write about discovering your spiritual center. That's when you're most present, positive, grounded, in control of your down-pulling passions. And I describe all different kinds of ways which might work for you for learning and experiencing your spiritual center, but even more important, learning how to return to it. For somebody who often feels like they're in a state of bliss or just feeling good, and maybe washing your car. Well, because of my back problems, energy, I don't wash my car now. But it's all about really finding what works for you and going on a path. I mean, we're treading really on our own. We're walking over hills, through chaparral, through rocky plains, through rainforest, and we can't really see what's ahead of us. What we have to deal with is what we have right now, but also developing all the tools of knowing to make best use of it. I mean, if you had to start a fire in the middle of nowhere, but you didn't have any idea how to do it, you would be lost if you had to put together a shelter. So this life is really also about developing the tools for mastering life. I mean, we all have the potential to become masters, to become God, no matter where you are. And you begin right where you are. Just look down at your feet, and there are golden bricks right in front of you. You just have to find and follow your own yellow brick road. And it may not be what your best friend is doing and telling you, you've got to try this. This is the answer. You've got to try things for yourself and develop the power of knowing within, in the present, to know what's right and true for you.
And would you say that meditation helps for that? I mean, it seems like some of those principles or some of those tools are universal, like meditation and becoming mindful. Like that's I feel like that's going to help everybody if they would do it, kind of thing, right? So like universally, there are things that, yeah, you probably should try this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, meditation to me is, kind of the paramount, but also, being with the highest teacher, if you can find that teacher. I mean, the issue for a lot of people, well, there are, I don't know, many, many thousands of kinds of meditations and techniques. It's really finding what is best for you. And to do that, you really have to define your objectives, what you're looking for. And I do have a section in Anew Now that helps you do that. I mean, what are your priorities? I mean, is it just present mindfulness? Is it evolving into a state of pure love and pure bliss? Or whatever it is, I give all kinds of options. And to help people who don't meditate or may not be happy with their meditation to find what works for them. That's why I said a little bit earlier in the segment, if you spend your whole life seeking, it is time well spent. Now, my last life, I was the co-owner I was English, a co-owner of a office supply and stationery company, but I call that my English seeker life. Because 2 lives ago, I was a British banker and I had a sojourn in India, and there I met a perfect saint, which was to me the signal event of my existence. So I had met this saint, which had made kind of an infinite impression on my soul. And so that last life I was seeking, and by the way, a lot of people say, well, why did you start seeking at such a young age? Well, I've been seeking consciously for 3 lives before that. 3 lives ago, I was all into the Comte de Saint Germain. Some of your listeners and viewers may be aware of who he was. And I lived at the same time he was around in Europe, but I knew nothing about him. But my next life, when I was in Baltimore, right after the American Revolution, I found out about him and I thought, wow, here is a master who theoretically, they say, lived for centuries. So it's all about seeking. And until you become the truth, you're a seeker. The ultimate truth is the source of being. And until you rejoin that ocean of bliss, you're a seeker. So people are all different. I have friends who've been initiated by many teachers and gurus. They felt a need to, or they've gone away and come back. It may not be on your destiny to follow a teacher this lifetime. I didn't. My last time was all about reading books and trying out things. So it's all individual, and you have the greatest gift to unwrap.
Well said. Well said. Can I ask you what was, and this is for everything for me. Obviously, you're sharing your story about being pulled back from almost being hit by a car, and then that facilitates into meeting your teacher, and when you said that, you meant in I guess in the spirit, correct? It wasn't a physical person that pulled you back. It was some type of master, you would say.
Oh yeah, it was a power within me. Sometimes actually there's sort of like there are times when I need to know something, and there are signs. I literally like feel my head moved in a different direction to look at something. But that's I have this presence within me. That's what happens during our initiation. It's sort of like the Shabbat, the word, kind of manifests a particular power because I'm part of, I'm a disciple. So well, repeat your question again. I may have gotten off track.
Well, I wanted to get clear on that before moving forward.
Right. Yeah, it was not a physical person. Okay. I've definitely, felt this presence intervene in my life in key moments. Like I was visiting Palm Springs years ago. I was on holiday, and it was a green light. I started to go through, and all of a sudden, bam, my foot slammed on the brake. If I continued going, I would have been in a terrible car crash. This car came through 60, 70 miles an hour, running a red light.
It wasn't your time. You still had something to fulfill on the earth, right?
Yeah, and listen, when I had all these operations and bowel obstructions, I could have easily died. And in fact, my surgeon gave up on me, and I hadn't had any water or food for nearly 2 weeks. And I said, well, this is during a total bowel obstruction. I said, what other options can we try? Because I'm very much into alternative healing and medicine and all that. And he looked at me as if I was stupid, and he said, hospice. You either pull out of this or forget it. And I thought, no, I'm not going to die. So, I mean, I knew all those times I wasn't going to die, and I recovered. So we just have to do, the best we can.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about for the past lives and the 88 past lives? Like, what is the biggest proof that you have? Obviously, it's hard. I'm sure there's a bunch of little things, like you said, because there's things just start connecting and reaching out to you, and you feel drawn to things, and then there's downloads and there's memories. So I'm sure it's a lot of stuff like to unpack. But for you, what was the thing, like the first thing that made you say, hey, there's something more to this, to find my first past life, or now we're on to 88? Like how, like what was the thing that made you know that there was some validity to this, and I need to keep exploring this?
Well, before I started to recover my past lives, I really developed my intuition, my sense of knowing. And initially, it was like all the things I was curious about, like, had I met a master in a past life? I mean, when I'd go out to lunch with a group of friends, they'd call me the Englishman because I was so English. I quickly recovered my last 2 lives. I was English. But in my spiritual memoir, In Search of Lost Lives, I describe all these particular individual talents and abilities and traits that were really unusual. And they all linked up to specific experiences in particular past lives. So that was sort of a verification for what I felt was true, or I knew it came from somewhere. I mean, explain more than anything of why I am who I am today. But eventually I was just able to develop. All of a sudden I discovered, as I mentioned earlier, I had the power to know whatever I could know, and the power to know what I couldn't know. But I also, through my work with higher consciousness, recovered that I had done work between lives, before lives, and the ability to traverse time while in the physical. It's an unusual ability that most people wouldn't have. So in terms of verification, there were a lot of things I wrote about that I didn't know were true, like had railroads been built at this time? I write about a trip I took from Bombay to Agra, and I just wrote about it because I remembered the journey and what was so important that happened on the journey. And I don't know, maybe railroads were built 30 years later. So I did research after I wrote the book, and every single thing was verified, every kind of detail. Like I knew I'd been a member of the Metaphysical Society, but I thought, was I there at the right time? So I verified that. The other thing that I found really interesting is that other people verified my experience. One thing I write about in the book, In Search of Lost Lives, is the cohort of 7. And this is the group of mind and soul entities I was together with between lives much of the time. And as it happened, I knew all of them in this lifetime. And these are people I'd had the most incarnations with. And I contacted a number of them, and a number of them have read my book. And we acknowledged that when we met, it was like so powerful. We were like dizzy from the impressions from past lives. And so they basically kind of confirmed that we had this amazing, powerful connection. But, really, until you go within to a certain point with them, at a certain point, all your lives are an open book. You can look at everything. And that's when you're beyond the mind, because the soul is all knowing. So it's a very high state. Once a person really isn't a true saint until they go beyond the mind. But that we all have that capacity. We all have that power within us, even if it doesn't happen this lifetime. It could happen 3 lives from now.
You mentioned different meditations, thousands of meditations, hundreds of thousands even, and different experiences probably that will come about through those meditations. Get key on what it is you're looking for and you want to achieve, or what you want to do. Call in your spirit guides, meet your ancestors, travel to the future. I mean, there's so many. Leave your body and fly around in remote view. Take your choice. But for you, in your meditation and getting information, you talked about getting, I found it was a beautiful way to get inspired, to find out what your purpose is. Like in meditation, there's impressions that come to you, and you getting these visions of past lives and stuff. Does that realm become more familiar to you, or is it weird and strange every time? Do you kind of get to a familiar place? Okay, now we're entering the state where my body's falling asleep. For me, like, now there's a light that approaches me and I'm going to follow that light. And the more you visit, the more you spend time there, you get familiar, and maybe you take a different path while you're in that type of vision. For you, does it become more familiar? Is it still squirrely, I would say? It's hard to catch things, fleeting. It's just an impression here. To be able to hold that image, okay, there it is. I'm focusing on it. Because another image wants to present itself. Like, there's so much that goes on. Sometimes it's almost like downloads of 1,000 books hitting you at once, and you're like, oh my God, you just got to grab something. How is it for you, and how familiar have you gotten with going within that mindfulness and communicating and experiencing that realm?
Well, there's meditation when I'm sitting, and there's mindfulness when I'm going about my day. And the mindfulness and being in the now becomes more and more familiar. I'm somebody, I guess, maybe one of my predominant mental patterns is anxiety, which is, part, an outgrowth of one of the basic down-pulling passions, which is fear. I want to know what's going to happen. Well, writing the book has actually been great practice for me. And so it's become more and more familiar to be in the now. And because I have this intuitive ability, I can always ask, what is the most optimal way to do this and that, and put myself in the future. But more and more, I'm just living automatically, and that's becoming more and more familiar. Now, as to meditation, things will come through automatically. I mean, my mind what my mind likes to do is compose sentences. So, if I'm working on a project, things will come through during meditation, and I know I shouldn't stop and write them down, although I'd love to. But also, as part of meditation, the whole point of my meditation is to withdraw my soul and mind currents from the body. It's to experience death while living. Yeah. I mean, I think it was Paul said, I die daily. Well, that is, the process of this kind of meditation. It's the whole idea of collecting your attention at the eye center and withdrawing your soul and mind current so you can pierce the eye center and, through your own, rather than being kind of pulled within and not knowing what's happening, having like a near-death experience generally is not under a person's control. So when we're talking about dying daily, that is you consciously withdrawing your spiritual currents and entering the inner realms, which without a guide, you'll be completely lost. And somebody could come up to you who could be Hitler or Attila the Hun, and you don't know if that person's, so with a guide and with, a powerful mantra, you can test all these entities, because people could come up to you as your long lost twin brother who died before you, and you may not know. I mean, there are all these amazing powers within. Different entities can, be benevolent or malevolent. Yeah. That's the thing. So,
yeah, we discussed that a lot, especially coming from a Christian background. You have a lot of people who are scared of it because you hear more talk of the demonic than you do of the angelic in Western Christianity. of casting out demons and exorcisms. And there's a demon behind that book. There's a demon behind that television program. Be careful. You'll never hear them say, hey, there's an angel that is imparted when you watch this movie. You're not going to hear them say that. So when it comes to dealing with things of the spirit world and things that they don't understand from Western Christianity, which is what I come out of, they're really scared of a lot of that stuff, because it's like, how do you believe that that was your uncle? It could have been a demon masquerading as your uncle. But you said there's tests and things, right?
Well, that's very true, and that's why the best thing is to have a very advanced master who will be with you, and you can test that. Now, the whole creation is set up to keep you here. I mean, and not let you progress beyond the mind until you're absolutely pure and you paid off your karma. So the mind has a built-in bias of negativity. So it's much easier to believe in the demonic rather than in the angelic, to believe that people are out to get you, rather than the opposite.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the mind is really our greatest enemy. But the thing is, if we become masters of the mind, it can become our greatest friend, because it'll make you sit in meditation. It'll help you follow the right path, because the true bliss available to us is absolutely beyond language, totally indescribable, beyond what any of us could ever imagine. The beauty's within, but it's all a question of gaining control over the mind so you can withdraw from the physical. But, even if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, you can set yourself up on the path of truth, of discovery, and, learn to trust your knowing. There's so many wild things out there on the internet today that people buy into. Yeah. And this is just another way of distracting us from the fact that we're going to die. And this is your chance to make spiritual progress and to evolve further. I mean, my real spiritual evolution started thousands of lives ago when I was a woman on another planet. And I can be happy to come back and talk about my other 2 planets. And I have 6 children. My husband was akin to a lawyer, and I had this fabulous beginning of my spiritual evolution. So this has been going on a long time, but I don't think I'm coming back. That's what I'm getting. I very much feel this is my last time on the physical. I could be mistaken. There may be a lot more stuff I have to come back to pay off, but it's really a question of attachment. If your main attachment is to God, whatever you want to call the love source, that's the main thing. I do feel that love source, what the love source is keenest is for us to love that, rather than get hung up on all these theories and crazy things.
Mm-hmm. I want to let everybody know that if you have any questions for today's guest, Michael Goddart, post them in the chat. For those of you who are listening to the live stream, those of you who are patrons, you actually have ability to join and ask questions via Zoom. So that Zoom link is posted there. So feel free to join the Zoom and ask questions as well. Just let us know. And Richie, let me know if anybody has questions on your end, or if you have questions as well, brother. He's with us here. So another question I have, this is something that we've been exploring. As a truth seeker, like, I feel like you got to be a skeptic. Like, you got to make sure that you know that you know. Like, we hear stories. I mean, you even said earlier that the psychics you went to see weren't telling you the truth. Either they were making it up or they were great storytellers.
Right. They thought they were telling me the truth, but every life I went through, no, not even close.
Yeah. So I find great pleasure in being a skeptic, because I feel like it lets me encounter the real deal, like a meme, something that just keeps repeating over and over to you in your life, whether it's synchronicities or a spirit or God or the angels or Jesus trying to get your attention. It's not with every wind or every voice or every imagination. It's something that sticks with you. It's persistent. And I feel like truth is persistent, and it holds up, and it stands the test of time. So it's good to approach it as a skeptic. But in that, we talk about what if and maybe maybe these are two separate phenomena that people are experiencing, but I wonder if they could be similar. Instead of, and this is hypothetical, I'm no expert, that's why I'm asking you, instead of saying that you personally were this woman who lived so many thousands of years ago and there was 88 lives that you actually lived, what about the theory or the possibility that it could be people in your family lineage that is memories that are locked inside of your DNA? Not necessarily that it was you and you were cognitive, but essentially it was you because you have the same DNA and those memories come back. Has there been any study on that, or is that a possibility of how these memories come to us through our DNA?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Derek. No, I know that's totally not the case. It has nothing to do with my DNA. It was all confirmed through my higher consciousness, and I have no doubt that when I rise above the mind, this will all be confirmed. This is sort of my service. I was meant to write about these lives. So, one thing I talk about in my interviews is some people are fascinated by their genealogy and their bloodlines, and they think that's the key to finding out who they are. Well, it may influence you. You get certain biological predispositions, maybe a tendency toward breast cancer, whatever. I'm not a medical doctor, but one of the most gratifying things of recovering those 88 lives is that it completely clarified and explained why I am who I am today. I mean, each member of my nuclear family, we couldn't have been more different. We were completely different. And what I recovered is that we were what I call first timers. For me, it was my first life with each of them. But I recovered 88 past lives, 17 of which were animal past lives, which is a whole interesting aspect in itself. But I've had thousands. I've had literally, I was able to know human lives. I've had 4,137 and millions of lives in lower life forms. From plant to fish, lizard to bird to animal. We're really the only creation has the power of discrimination. It's called Akash. We can worship God. So we're at a very high level. A lot of people believe in angels. They may have seen them, or higher powers, but angels cannot, they're not in a form in which they can basically go back to God. They have a very high function in the creation, but the human form is the form for returning to our true home. They long for human birth. I imagine you could become an angel and be an angel for a seeming eternity, but you're going to be stuck in that wonderful role. Personally, if I had a chance to go to my own perfect heaven, whatever that would be, I wouldn't want it, because I want to rejoin. Rather than being a dirty drop of the ocean, I want to rejoin the ocean I came from, that ocean of bliss.
Yeah. So many possibilities of what heaven would look like. And I like to play the devil's advocate, just to what about this? What about that? And not to take a hard left or a hard right, but it's just let's look at the ideas. And I've raised the question of what we call heaven and or wherever it is that we go. What if it's not as cool as this place? What if it isn't as cool as Earth? Earth is pretty cool. If you make it, it is what you make it, but family and chocolate and dogs and all that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's all in the physical. And believe me, there are worse places than Earth. I share, most of the animal lives I write about resulted from a preponderance of bad actions I committed that tipped the balance, where I lost the opportunity of a human birth. But a couple lives I committed actions that were so egregiously bad and evil that I went to what I call a state of reformation. The emotional laden word is a hell. It was a bespoke hell. But I want to clarify and make a distinction about heaven. Any of the higher regions will, if your consciousness can be there, it will seem like a heaven. There are, highly evolved souls who have reached the astral region or the causal region, and that's as far as they've gone, and they felt it's heaven. So, but there's many more grand heavens beyond that. I mean, the seven heavens is not a loose term. I mean, basically there is a seven heavens, and then there's the ultimate. But I also talk about what I call like bespoke or custom-made heavens, where you're being rewarded for all the love and good work you did on earth. And that's going to be a heaven really just designed for yourself. So, I mean, it's so beyond our imagination, Derek. Everything exists. I mean, in my book, I say another name for God is diversity. If it's possible, it's going to be there. I mean, look at all the species we've had on Earth that are extinct and that are dying off now, and that will come with whatever form the Earth is in. So do be a devil's advocate. I mean, question things, but the point is your essence is truth. So we have to develop our built-in shit detector. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people haven't worked on that. I feel I have to a good degree. Yeah. I mean, when some politicians talk, I'm thinking, how can somebody buy into that? It boggles the mind.
We've been talking about that a lot lately.
Oh, have you? Well, they haven't really. I mean, people want to be true believers. They want to give up their power. I want people to be self-empowered and develop their built-in shit detector, because that's what's going to help you. Until you find somebody who is the embodiment of truth, a fully realized saint, you don't really, you're going to have to rely on yourself. You can get input from people, but that doesn't mean you need to take it and accept it. You can test it. Somebody told me I should move to Ashland. Well, the time I would really want to live there would be often the smoky season when people leave. So that probably would work for me. So do we have any questions that people are dying?
Yeah, we got dying to ask. Hey, come on now. See the pun.
No pun intended.
Yeah, we do have a question here, I believe, and let's bring Richie in. 'Cause there's a bunch of questions coming through. Richie, do you got a question for Mike from somebody in the audience, or?
Hello, yes, many thanks for the sharing in the broadcast today. Michael, appreciate your sharing your wisdom.
Hi, Richie. Namaste.
Namaste, namaskar. Question about the teacher that you received your initiation under, or what type or branch of lineage that you have received initiation into. Thank you.
Yeah, you mean actually who it is or who it was?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, I don't really share that publicly because first of all, the teacher has departed, but I encourage people to read my books and to pursue their search however it is. But if somebody who initiated me into Bhakti and Surat Shabad Yoga, so Bhakti is devotion, and Surat Shabad is the soul current. So it's somebody who attuned me to the inner sound, which all of us have within us, all of us can hear. We may hear only a very, very distant echo, but as your mind becomes pure and pure. I mean, the sounds of the inner regions are absolutely ecstatic and blissful. I mean, people who have risen to a level where they can hear some of the initial sounds, all they want to do is be absorbed in that blissful music all the time. So there's a truth I feel is true, that there's always a perfect living master on earth. You just have to search for him, but he will find you if you're meant to be his sheep, his initiate. So, I just wish everybody the best in furthering your own search and seeking the truth.
Gratitude. Thank you. Haribol.
Oh, you're most welcome. Anything else?
Do you have anything, Richie? Any questions? I know you're a seeker, Richie. I know your gears are turning. Anything that you want some clarity on and things as well?
Not specifically.
Or that you think the audience would enjoy a question. I know you got some in your head and you can't say you don't because we talk too much.
Fair, for sure. I guess I'm just permeating in the perspective because this is the first time that you mentioned the term bhakti in all the sharing. And I kind of had an inkling talking about the subtle bodies and talking about the different vocabulary you used seemed to be informed by that tradition. And I think it's really interesting that you're not leading with your tradition, you're sharing the concepts instead, rather than adhering so much to the lingua franca of using the Sanskrit terms.
Oh, and what tradition are you speaking about, like Bhakti Yoga?
Some of it sounds that way, yes.
Oh, well, there's Bhakti Yoga and there's Bhakti Yoga. I mean, my dog, who you may have noticed coming in for some love earlier, his name is Bhakti, as a matter of fact, which people love. I mean, Bhakti is devotion. So it's really devotion to your teacher, to your guide, but it's a Shabad yoga as well, which is really meditating on the word, the logos, the Shabad. And Shabad is spelled S-H-A, B for boy, D for dog. So, but the thing is, I mean, there's so much literature out there. Saints throughout time in very different expressions and completely different cultures have taught this path. And the point is, you really need to, if you want to find this kind of path, you need a living teacher. And it's not that hard to find. I mean, if you read my memoir, it'd be very easy to do a Google search and go from there to find out, our particular branch. But there are offshoots. I mean, the thing we haven't talked about, which is probably not be good for another session, is ego. There are initiates who set themselves up as gurus and get people to pay them money and make a fortune. Maybe they've had inner experiences, they get spiritual powers, and they wow people and they convince them, you need to be my initiate. So that's where you really need to be, a skeptic and have your built-in shit detector really ticking and alive. Because the ego is really the greatest challenge to overcome the ego. And you can't always do it. I mean, you can manage your ego. I write a lot about getting to know and manage your ego. I write a lot about that in A New Now. But we can't really rise above the ego, which is part of having the mind, until we become really pure.
Instead of rising above, do you think that it would serve us more to some degree to work with it and to identify when it's kicking in, just so we know, like, okay, you're holding me back from a job I'm scared to take because I don't know if I'm worth that much money, and the ego says, no, you're not worth it. You remember mom telling you you'll never be nothing, and that kicks in. Like the ego kind of facilitates a lot of that. So
I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're talking about what we would call negative ego or inverted ego, like feeling you're not worthy enough. Mm-hmm. We have all these mental patterns, conscious and really subconscious, that need to be released. So there are therapies out there I talk about in general terms for really accessing these self-sabotaging subconscious beliefs. I mean, why do people keep repeating the same patterns, like marrying the wrong person time after time? Why do they keep failing? Well, they're programming. I mean, we're a mass of bad programming. The mind is like a computer. So obviously you want to get to know your ego, the positive and the negative, but the ego just wants to inflate itself most of the time. So we can't really squelch the ego. We can manage it. You can be aware. If I'm about to say something, I've got the point like, oh, wow, that's the mind being on its ego trip. And I'm quiet. I mean, before you speak, you can always ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? That comes from the Buddha. So ego is a very important topic. I'm glad we brought it up.
That's awesome. Yeah. The Bible would call it the fleshly nature, or like it's the egoic nature. It's learning the voice of the inner critic,
Yeah, and I'm not a student at all of the Bible, but I believe a lot of people believe that we're born in sin. And sin comes, I'm trying to remember my Latin, from the Latin, I think, sinister, which means to miss the mark, exactly. So that's basically going away from God. I mean, God is the mark. So we're all born with sin. because of the actions we've created in past lives as humans. I don't quite buy into, because of something someone else did, or, leaving the Garden of Eden. It's because of what we've done ourselves. Everything we're going through, it may be new, it may be somebody acting out, but our destiny is formed from all the actions and debts we've created from past lives. So we are born into sin, but it's us, it's not somebody else. Because we are puppets of the mind, which is part of the mind is this huge ego, either positive or negative, or completely commanding.
Both, usually, right? Everybody has the ability and potential to do both, and that's the beauty of like choice. And you get to wake up and choose what you're gonna eat, and choose, like you mentioned, kill 19 people or not kill. I'm gonna heal 19 people. I'm gonna inspire 19 people today, when the other person doesn't get the ego in check and ends up doing the opposite. And so with this life and what people will call free will, like the yin and the yang both exist, and we have the potential to do both. And so that's why
we do. And one practice I feel everybody can do and be aware of, and that is to be a good human being. I mean, don't lash out at people. Be aware that of negative criticism, backbiting, that can stay with somebody for the rest of their lives. Yes. Betrayal. I mean, speak your truth with love, rather than let somebody down. Show up and tell them, I can't do this, or this doesn't work for me. Share the truth rather than create all these lies about what you're doing. So really focus on being a good human being and being kind and speaking the truth, and not speaking harshly.
I dig it. Before enlightenment, chop wood. After enlightenment, chop wood. Continue to chop. Be a good person. Do your human duties, and we'll make the world a better place, one good deed, one inspired soul at a time. Michael, man, thank you for coming on, hanging out with me. Really enjoyed picking your brain and hearing about your journey and your books and all the beautiful stuff that you're creating. Congratulations on all the awards that you're winning with your books, and let people know where they can go to tap in with you, to check out your books and your website and all that cool stuff.
Sure. The best place to start is my website, which is Goddart.com. That's G-O-D for God, D-A-R-T for Dart. If you're driving or moving and don't have anything to write with, just a good way to remember something is think of a love dart from God. And on the website, Goddart.com, you'll find a lot of excerpts from my books, a lot of interviews, particularly about my spiritual memoir. And if you buy your books at Amazon, you can click right over from the book page to Amazon. And I've got interviews all over the internet or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm on Facebook. My book page is More Bliss. And if you have a real burning question, you can ask it on the book page.
Great. Michael, enjoyed it, brother. I know the audience did too. I'm sitting here looking at our live stream chat, and I know once this goes live on the podcasting apps that people are going to be blessed by this conversation, and a lot of seeds were sown and questions were answered, even for me. So thank you so much for coming on, hanging out with me. I really enjoyed it, brother. We'll have to do it again sometime. Thank you.
I so enjoyed it. Thank you with all my heart, Derek. All the best. Many blessings.
Thank you, brother. Shalom.
Shalom.
Michael Goddart, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check out his website, check out his work. Beautiful brother, beautiful story, remembering past lives in search of lost lives. A New Now, Spiritual Revolution, A Seeker's Guide. And I'm interested in what he said, the other one that's coming out, Becoming Paranormal. Becoming paranormal. Now, I've heard the terms such as becoming supernatural, becoming God, becoming this, becoming that, but becoming paranormal. Very interesting title indeed. So I'm interested in what that book has to offer and what he's going to bring to the table with that. So make sure y'all check out his work and let him know that you heard him on the TruthSeekah podcast as well. death, man. Stories that we make up, religions that we join, or just becoming okay. Listen, I know what happens, that when I die, I don't exist, and that is the scariest thing for me. And maybe it's scary for you, but there's people who come to grips, and they, science-based people, because they really want proof of the afterlife, and as far as they're concerned, there is no proof. I've been seeing little interviews, or not interviews, but they're snippets from a interview or something where Bill Nye visited Ken Ham, who is the creationalist, who has the big Noah's Ark exhibit that you can go to, and very much a biblical theologian, and Bill Nye, and essentially an atheist, goes there, and they're kind of walking through the exhibit, looking at it, and they're kind of having this little conversation. Bill Nye has nothing to prove, and he just talks about his unbelief in the afterlife and unbelief in God, and there is no proof, and how can you say that? And it was a very interesting conversation. And when you pay attention to auras and just the way that people act, their personas, and like the guy, the Christian guy, Ken Ham, he had a lot to prove. He was very defensive, because if Bill Nye didn't have to defend anything. He's like, yeah, I don't think anything happens. There's really no proof. And the guy's like, yeah, there's total proof. The Bible is proof, and the Bible is the only proof we need. And he's like, well, that's what you believe, but I've never died. I don't know what happens. I would hope. It would be awesome. I see why people believe in the afterlife, but to see even his skepticism of the afterlife, it's very scary to hear Neil Tyson deGrasse talk about and make it sound as beautifully as he can about your body that is going to go into the earth, and you're going to become fertilizer, and worms are going to eat you, and they're going to, your body is going to give life to other life, and plants are going to grow out of you and above you. And he tried to explain it as beautiful and eloquently as he could, but it was still like scary, that fact that you might not exist when you die. Like, that's the end. And none of us wants that. Even the people, I would say, like Bill Nye, who has come to a final agreement. Like, yeah, we just don't exist. There's nothing that happens. It's it. So be mindful, be happy, do good deeds. And Ken Ham, the Christian, he kept going to this thing, which a lot of Christians do. They say that when it comes to morality, if there is no penance, if there is no judgment, if there is no, you have to answer for the wrong that you did on the other side, then what prevents you from being a serial killer, being a thief or a rapist, or just taking what you want? Because once you die, it's over. There is no afterlife. And Bill Nye would look at him and say, so you're only, like, you want to do those things, but you don't because you'll be punished. He's like, yeah, well, human nature is just kind of taken. It's very, very interesting conversation, but how scrambled and how panicky the guy was to prove his points. And Bill Nye was just like, hey, just what it is. Everybody has to come to their own conclusion about what happens. I don't think any of us know for certain. I say I've never died. And my reincarnation friends are like, hey, you just don't know it. You haven't done the regression yet. Do the regression and you'll figure out what you were. Try to remember you were something before you were this. I don't think it was a person. Maybe this is my first incarnation here. Maybe that's why there's the skepticism that comes from me. But I want to know. Like, I would hate to be a parrot of a doctrine, of a theology, of a philosophy that someone created because of their fear of death. And I'm parroting their belief because it helps people not feel so scared or alone. Like, I understand that part, but let's dig into truth and let's find something else that we can have substance over. That's where religion serves us, is the fear of death, the fear of the afterlife, the fear that you don't exist anymore. And religion, like, immediately nullifies that. Psychedelics, for many people, you overcome the fear of death by 5 grams of psilocybin. For other people, it's having a near-death experience and seeing their family members and seeing Jesus or this being of light that approaches them and says, hey, it's okay, but it's not your time. Go back. And so boom, after they have that, oh yeah, I died. And so it's not so bad. It's not as bad as you think. And so that helps us because we're scared to death. Give us some answers. Yeah, it's not bad. I died and I came back and it wasn't so bad. But me, the skeptic, I want proof. Like, did you really die though? How long were you dead? How long were you without oxygen? Like, you want to pry versus like that guy died and came back. I mean, that's why you have the skeptics over Jesus. Hold on, did he really die? I identify when it comes to archetypes in the Bible with doubting Thomas. Again, I talk about this all the time, but his doubt, his skepticism birthed an experience for him. It birthed an encounter that he was able to put his fingers in the holes in the Messiah's hand. When the Messiah died on the cross and was crucified, before he left, he said, listen, many will come in my name and say, I am he. Don't believe them. When I come, you're going to know it's me. And he gave like these things to identify. And so he gets crucified. 3 days later, there's a guy on the scene that doesn't look like Jesus, right? They don't recognize him. Something's different about him. He comes back. His disciples see him. They find him. They don't know it's him at first. And then eventually they're whatever it was that took them to say, okay, it's him. They were convinced. Thomas comes up. They say, hey, Thomas, Jesus is back. Like he said he would be. He's like, hold on. It don't even look like him. Like, I'm not going to believe because he warned us that people were going to come and try to pretend to be him. Jesus warned us of that. That's what the scripture says. And so he said, I'm not going to believe until I stick my fingers in the holes of his hand because I've seen them crucify our Lord. I've seen him give up the ghost, as the Bible says, his spirit left his body. So that skepticism birthed and opened up a portal for him to do something that maybe the other disciples didn't do. And that was be embraced by his master, to be able to place his fingers in the holes of his hands where they crucified him. So not to just take somebody's word for it. The guy, Michael talked about going to many psychics and them telling him stories of this is what you were in the past life. And then he says he starts to explore it. He's like, hold on, these people were lying to me and took my money. Like, you got to pay psychics usually. And they took my money, and the truth that I'm coming to in the end is that these people were lying. A lot of people come to similar conclusions. You find people that just tell you what you want to hear. We got to be careful. That's the ego. That's knowing your mind, which he said can be your biggest enemy, because at many churches, many mosques, many temples around the world, many podcasts, the guests and the preachers and the priests tell you what you want to hear. Why? The scripture says hope deferred makes the heart sick. You got to have hope. Even if it's sold to us, even if it's a narrative that isn't true, it helps me to cope with it. To know that my loved one is still watching me. He's actually standing beside me right now. Whatever it is, we make up stories and scenarios. Is that to say that the paranormal and supernatural isn't real? No, not by any means. But it's like, maybe there's repeatability. Maybe there's EVP, electronically recorded voice phenomena, that ghosts are speaking from the afterlife and it's picking up on MP3 players and recordings. Like, hold on. Paranormal investigations, ufology, CE5, angelic contact, demonic possessions. Listen, when stuff starts happening over and over again, we document it. There's some kind of repeatability that happens. And for me, that gives me hope. I'll be honest with you. It gives me hope of the afterlife, and that something exists beyond the physical mundane. That when we cross over, some essence of ourself continues, even if it's just a record that is burnt into the atmosphere. The place where you lived, or the place where you died, and it's etched in there. And if people come and feel, they can feel a temperature shift. They feel something different. Someone said in chat here that maybe they can feel the energy of their loved ones. Listen, my wife, when she sees hummingbirds at certain times, it reminds her of her grandmother, her mama. When she sees that hummingbird, it's immediate reminder. Or smelling grandpa's cologne, whether you're walking through Macy's in a mall and you smell it, or you're sitting in your room by yourself and the smell just comes across the air. Like there is a reminder, there is a hope, there is something more that exists on the other side. And we all have to come to that realization, whether it's just being okay with nothing exists. There's some people who do that. I guess I refuse. To be honest with you, I kind of refuse that, or I'm scared of it. So I'm gonna believe other theories. I'm gonna search for something that has substance. And Jesus talks about the afterlife. Jesus talks about having taken the keys of death and hell, and he's defeated death, and you will now be with me in paradise. Hold on, somewhere else outside of this earth isn't paradise, not for a lot of people. So there's somewhere going that is better. It's a vacation. It is a place of rest, and you're going to be with me in this place, and we'll see each other on the other side. So you got to get clear on what it takes for you. For many people, this interview was enough. You were looking for proof of reincarnation, and you get to come back and you're good. You're sold. The story was good. You've watched a lot of documentaries and you're good. Like, I'm not against it and I'm not against you, but I don't know what I want. I don't know if I want to download myself. I don't know if I want a ghost to appear to me and have a conversation. Like, I've had a lot of weird stuff that makes me a believer, but I don't know about, being reincarnated, or even if anything is real. We are truth seekers. We don't take anybody's word for it. Maybe if maybe it's the 100th interview that I do with a person who comes back from the other side, and that's the one that sticks, and I can tell that they were telling me the truth, and it wasn't just downloads that was coming in their head or something. I don't know. Again, Michael has to get clear on what happens when you die, even at an early age of seeing his fish die. He had to get clear. It was an uneasy, uncomfortable feeling that was inevitable, and that's scary. Thinking about that, I remember my first time I understood death, that it was a concept, that not that just people die, but that everyone will die. I remember that day all so well. I was very young. I was with my sister, and we were we had a babysitter. And shout out to my sister, Tamala. Today is her birthday. Today's her birthday. Happy birthday, Tamala. Love you. But we were at the babysitter. Well, the babysitter was at our house. And it was just some guy who was just watching the kids while mom was going to work. And we had a huge TV, one of those big TVs back in the 80s. And they're really big. And we were watching I Love Lucy with Lucille Ball. And we're watching it. We're just playing in the living room. And one of us said, and I couldn't have been more than 5 or something, 5 or 6. I was really young, 7 at the oldest. But I remember saying, I think it was a lot younger than that, but I was very young, watching Lucille Ball, and we were like, we're going to meet her one day. We want to go and meet the people in the TV. And we're watching black and white reruns of Lucille Ball. And he said, no, you're not going to meet Lucille Ball. And it's like, why? She's dead. She died. She died? How'd she die? She got hit by a car? No, I think she died of old age. And when that registered, died of old age, what do you mean? Yeah, everybody dies. At some point, everyone's going to die. You're going to die one day. I'm going to die. Your mom's going to die. And when we're little kids and that registered in our head for the first time that you're going to die, everyone's going to die. Because now, in the now moment, nobody dies. And when you're a kid, you're an expert of the now moment. You're always playing and happy, and because that's what's in the now moment. But when that registered, we went into sheer terror and panic as a 4 and 5 year old, 5 and 6 year old, whatever we were, of the first time, like, we're going to die. We're going to die. And just crying and screaming. He couldn't calm us down. We were in terror, with the notion that one day you're gonna die, and you're gonna just see, what's it like when you die? You just see black, or you go to heaven, It's scary. The trauma that came from that at an early age. And I wonder where you were the first time you came in touch with your own mortality. The fact that you don't get to live forever, at least in this body. Maybe your spirit, your soul, your essence of who you are goes and gets into another body, as people would say, reincarnation. Or you get to go to heaven, and whatever it is that you believe. Where were you when you first got scared of death? Maybe you didn't. Maybe like, okay, whatever, another thing. Move on to something else. Because many of us deal with death that way, who don't go to religion or don't pick an afterlife or don't pick reincarnation. You don't pick or whatever, but you deal with it by changing the subject. I know people, they change the subject. We start talking about death. No, I don't want to think about that. Let's talk about, how about those Cowboys? You seen the football game this weekend? Shouldn't you listen, let's talk about it, because it's going to make you be mindful. It's weird. Maybe it's a form of psychosis to really do what I do and explore and ponder. But I treat every conversation like it's my last. And I feel like it's healthy. Maybe it's not. But especially concerning the times right now of what we're dealing with as a people, you should cherish every moment. You should cherish every breath. Again, you don't know how thankful you are or how much something means to you until it's gone. Until you don't have breath anymore. We're getting COVID. I do breath work. I'm mindful of the breath and all that. But listen, when it's taken away from you, and I lead breath work on Sunday mornings. Hey guys, we're not going to be doing much breath work today. We're going to take little baby breaths. We're going to connect. We're going to pray. I can't lead you in some deep, we can't do that today. We got to do some small breaths. So you with me? Sure, let's do it, and having those people with you. But you don't know how much you miss something until it's gone, whether that's a family member, whether that's a job that you got fired from. The job that I used to loathe at a certain point, there are good qualities about it that I miss. I had certain customers that I looked forward to when I was driving my delivery truck. And I may see them once or twice a week, but I knew when I saw them, we're going to cut up. They're going to tell jokes. They liked me. I liked them. And so I had these friends that I saw once a week driving. And when I got fired, I didn't get to tell them goodbye. In my mind, man, I wish I could go ride one more time and tell them goodbye. Because I'd seen those people once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, every week for 10 years. Some of those people were there the whole time. And I'd travel to a place and see them. And then when you got fired, when my time at that job expired, when my services were no longer needed, I didn't get to say goodbye. And for me, that's a fear, even in death, that you weren't ready. If anybody is ever ready, is that the fact that you don't get to say goodbye. People think, especially the ones who try not to think about it, oh yeah, we got time. We're going to get to say goodbye. We're going to get to say goodbye. You don't know that. Hey, I'm going to get a pizza. I'll be right back. What do you guys want? Boom, boom. All right. Be right back. 18-wheeler. Bow. Where's he at? He just went and got a pizza. He's going to be right back. He's not coming back. I didn't get to say goodbye. You're not promised tomorrow. Every hang up of the telephone, every disconnect from a Zoom call is your goodbye. Every moment, every thought, be present. It's all you got. Tomorrow and yesterday don't even exist. It is about the now. Listen, hug people. Whatever BS you're going through with your enemies and your family, try your best to get over it. It ain't worth it. You know how many family members fight and hate each other and they end up passing and they weren't on good terms? The last conversation they had was telling you how I really feel about you, and then that person dies, and I wish I could have told them. Life is precious. You don't know what you have until it's gone. We see that about jobs. We see that about relationships. Mindfulness, again, in earth, in this reality, as TruthSeekah, even like the things I like, I don't know where the next place is going. Like Michael talked about going to other planets and incarnating on other planets. I'm sure that if that's true, I don't know. But if that's true, there's planets where there is no chocolate. There's planets where beings that don't know how to show love. You know, anything that you can fathom that you'll miss. Man, I miss chocolate. I miss breath work with my people. Well, we don't breathe oxygen here, sir. There is no such thing. Well, I remember a past life on earth where I did breath work every Sunday. No, we don't do that. It's not possible. We don't do breath work. We're underwater beings here. And I'm just trying to show you different scenarios to be mindful of the little things, the breath, the heartbeat. Bring it back to the now moment, to focus. Friendships. Listen, I don't know. You know, I think it is healthy. It's setting yourself up to not be let down. You know, so and so died. Oh man. There is no I wish I can tell him goodbye. It's like, yeah, last time I talked with him, like I made the best of that moment, and that was my goodbye. That was my peace that I left with you. And every person I meet, and my friends, my family, my enemies, that is my desire. I don't know that it always comes across as I would like to, but it is the desire. It is the notion that I want you to remember me as someone who was a friend, remember me as somebody who cared, or somebody who challenged you, or remember this life as that. And we talk about remembering. So we get a picture, we get a tattoo of our grandfather. We get their name tattooed. I got my daughter's name tattooed. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to remember them. So we write it down. Okay, I'm going to remember them. I got their pictures hanging up. Like, that's why I really identify with, like, I don't do it. I would like to practice it. I just don't know anybody with the Mexican culture and the Day of the Dead. Like for Halloween, we're going to remember all of our friends and family that passed, and they're on the other side. And we're going to have all their pictures. Like I just think about that. I want to do it. I don't know if it's an altar. I don't know if it's that day. I don't know if it's once a week, but have everybody, man, who meant something to me that is no longer here, and just remember the beautiful times of telling stories and, you know, sleepovers when you were a kid, and video games and being competitive and shooting back. You don't get to do that no more. That's only for Earth. Where you're going, it's different. It's not like this place. And it's in the minutia. It's in the small details. Don't let it slip away. Don't let it slip away. Listen, there was things that I did that were uncomfortable, you know, and just things you do as a parent, meetings with teachers and stuff, and counselors or whatever. It's like, hold on, like. And I don't really want to go talk to the damn counselor or whatever. And then get there and like, hold on. I signed up for this. This is part of having a kid. Training them how to drive and then letting them take the vehicle out for the first time by themselves. Oh, God, it's scary. I had to go fix a flat tire, and the car jacked up yesterday for my daughter. You signed up for this, man. You signed up for this. Not only did you sign up for it, but sitting here in the counselor's office, registering my daughter from school, I don't want to be there. I'd rather be doing something else. Be mindful, be present. That stuff helps me to be present. Hold on. In 5 years, this is done. In 10 years, you're going to look back on this and miss it. Take a picture. Screenshot. Okay. So I'm immediately moved from like, hold on, this is gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for letting me experience this. I signed up for this. I want to make the best. So it went from being concerned to like holding a smile. Okay. You signed up for this. Or when the enemy shows you their flaws. When you hear about somebody gossiping and running your name through the dirt. It hurts, but you're like, okay. Okay. I know you're done. You're done. I can't give you any more. I'm tired of going above and beyond for you. You know what I'm saying? So these experiences that you're like, okay, there's a revelation there. Because it's fleeting. Every moment is fleeting. Every moment is passing. And that's why I'm a proponent of the now moment through meditation, through mindfulness. Every day is eternally. Every day is you die every day. Like he said, the Apostle Paul talks about, I die daily. I am already dead. I've already experienced what the ego death was. I've already experienced with 5 grams of psilocybin, and I went to the place where I believe you go when you die. Like, I believe it. I can't prove it, but it felt like it. It was definitely communicated. Is it proof? I don't know. Could be brain synapses dealing with the chemicals of psilocybin. Don't know. A lot of things could come to explain it. But I think the more that we explain it and the more that we play the skeptic, the more sure that we become. Do we convince the world? No. But we convince ourselves. That's the narrative. To convince yourself. And Richie, I know you're still with me. I don't know if you listened to the podcast last night. I don't think you did. I know you messaged me, but I mentioned you in it, and dealing with that scenario that I had forgot about with the alien grays and the trauma response. And so we make up something. Listen, I was traumatized at 5 about death. I got to figure something out. Watching movies with death and all of that. And so it becomes a lifelong pursuit of how to be okay with it. We make up stories. Is that to say that all of them's made up? The thing is, I don't know. Are some of them made up? You damn right.
Our whole life is stories. The entire life is stories.
The way you perceive, the way you interact, your narrative of your enemy, because your enemy is somebody else's father, who's the best person that ever lived. That's your story, and you're sticking to it.
And your spirit's cultivated by the people that you keep around you, and the stories that they reinforce, and the stories that you reinforce, and the new stories that come from the relationships with those people and the trust that's cultivated. Absolutely.
Do you think there's one main narrative, though? I think that's what I feel deep down. There's one main storyline in the RPG, but there's many other, hey, you're going to leave your body in this storyline and become that. The next act, you become a cheetah or whatever, but like, there's still a main story.
I'd agree. There's Animorph side quests for sure. There's other random dimensional pockets where we could jump into and experience all that is through any of the filters that all that is. Who's to say that the prime materia, the master overriding reality structure, is any different than the one we're experiencing right now?
Yeah, we don't know.
True. Bless.
But I'm trying to figure it out. And it is my pursuit. We talked, and I've joked probably with you and other people as of recent when we talk about past life, just because I'm a skeptic. I'm not sold. I'm open to the idea. I'm not against it. But the idea of, who I was or what I was in a past life. And for me, it's like, a lot of people are those things that they want to be now. A mystic, a shaman, a ruler. It's usually grandiose things that they say. And now I'm the conglomeration of what even Michael said today was like, I'm a conglomeration of all of those people. And in my mind, I went to archetypes. All of those archetypes, like, you know what I'm saying? So you identify them with a person, a persona, versus that's what a piece of you, because it's just who you are. Flirting with the idea and toying with it as I identify with the archetype for sure of the devil's advocate. Didn't know I didn't know what that was. All I knew that was presenting two sides of a story and just playing the middle ground and say, okay, what if this? What if nothing happens when you die? Let's talk about it. Or what if you go to heaven? Or what if heaven's not as good as earth and you want to come back to earth? Like, I'm not sold. Even if I was sold, like I can still toy with the idea for dialogue and getting clear on how the brain works, how we cope with trauma in scenarios, or even when your scenario and your narrative gets challenged, what does that cause? Like, does that cause truth? For sure. Like, you have to challenge your narrative. You have to be okay with people who don't believe you. I'm not talking to TruthSeekah no more. He doesn't believe in reincarnation, and he talked to me for an hour and a half. Listen, I'm trying to learn. I'm a skeptic. Healthy skepticism. Like, I know you believe it, and I know that it makes it real for you in this life. But for me, so I toy with the idea of devil's advocate. And people have been making memes about me lately with devil's advocate. Don't play the devil's advocate, people. There are no middle ground. It's either right or left. And I was like, you just listened to my podcast where I said I was a devil's advocate. And then you're commenting on my post and stuff about COVID and stuff. Like, you want me to, there's no left or right. There is no devil's advocate, people. Stop playing it, you false light worker. Oh God, tag me, say my name. But identify with that role, with that archetype, as we're becoming the archetype. So I'm like, I didn't know that the devil's advocate was a role in the early church. It was a position that somebody held. And that they had no like stake in the matter. And they were like, okay, well, what about this? Almost like a judge. Tell your side. I don't know either of you guys. Tell your side. Okay. Plausible. Tell your side. Interesting. Now, what about this? What do you say, sir? Well, I seen him here on the 7th day. Oh, that changes everything. So the devil's advocate is essentially that judge that sits back and judges the narrative, judges the doctrines of the early Catholic Church. So let me toy with the idea. Let me flirt with it. Maybe I was a devil's advocate back in the 1500s in the Catholic Church. I can easily run with it. I can write you a book on it. I do it for a living. The reason I do it for a living is because I was reincarnated. I sat under the 5th Pope of Rome. I was a friend of Julius Caesar. He executed a lot of people, and I seen it. It was part of my trauma. When I was 5 years old, me and my sister learned about death. And the reason for me it was very traumatic is because it immediately brought back visions of seeing people get beheaded, of seeing people getting tortured. And so my response to it was because I remembered my past life. And I grew up and grew into the same role that I played as a devil's advocate. You see how, like, you can believe your own story, you can write it, you can sell it, and I can teach it. But what if that idea, Richie, come in here, is like the brother Wayne, that you're channeling that version of you, or a devil's advocate that lived in the 1500s. And just by the toying in the free flow of energy and imagination and dialogue, you're channeling something that existed back then, and you're bringing it into your now moment. It's okay with us to entertain these ideas, right?
I think it would be dishonest to not acknowledge that the name that we were given is a channel. It's a frequency that we were told, this is your channel, this is your name. When someone says your name, this is what you respond to. Somebody knows me as the neighbor. So when they say, hey, oh yeah, the neighbor, I saw the neighbor today, he got the mail. That channel of neighbor is being used to point to me rather than my name, Richie. Okay, there's also the channel name of the neighborhood, of all the people around. And what we're talking about is an exquisitely focused form of community member that has to do with a contrarian. There has to be somebody who pushes back. So in this advocating for the opposing side, or advocating for a different perspective, that means that there's an equal and healthy balance. If you're surrounded by yes men, well, that's not going to serve your community or tribe. If somebody says, yes, should we go into this dark cave? Yes, yes, yes. And you all go in the dark cave and there's a saber-toothed tiger. Not so hot. But if somebody's like, I don't know, there's some bones out here. Maybe we shouldn't go in this. Maybe there's some context clues and information that we could observe and make newly informed decisions. So yeah, definitely in this time where we're getting our personalities echoed back to us in customized advertisements, and we're choosing our selection. You used to be had to suffer a commercial. You had to suffer that Cheerios commercial if you were going to watch the rest of the TV show. So you got a little bit of the programming from the little honey nut Cheerios, and then that was in your program. But now we're choosing our own programs. And really, unless you're making art, unless you're making program, unless you're living as the channel, you're probably not experiencing as authentic of a reality as you potentially could.
And we're all channels, right? for whatever information, or you're a channel, you're even a parrot, you know, the parrot of you heard this narrative and then you just repeat it. And so you're a channel for, I'm a channel for ancient Christianity that existed a long time ago, that I continue to parrot and continue. Now it lives forever through me, at least while I'm here. You know, we talk about tapping into immortality through your art, like he said as well. He kind of touched on it, but he said he didn't choose that path. But for me, I did choose that path of podcast and music. My hope and my prayer is that that my legacy through this stuff, many things come from it, is that you remember me and what I stood for, what I brought to the table through my music, through my podcast, through my books, through relationships and friendships. But these are artistic ways that I articulated my beliefs and my creativity, and that would far last a lot longer than this body will. And I believe that it will. I believe that it will. And even with that being said, in the times that we live in with uncertainty and me getting COVID, I have to tell you, I'm on the brink of releasing this new album. There's a fear that of death, that you die and that album doesn't get released. Oh, does my family know how to put it out? What if I died of COVID? What if I got in an accident? Not just COVID. People stop saying that. Accident, doesn't matter. Like however you check out, like the fear of this dies with me. That's a fear. Your dreams die with you. I didn't become the channel for my dream. I didn't try it. I always made excuses. I was good at finding out reasons why I don't deserve it or why others deserve it ahead of me. I always made excuses. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. That's why I'm doing what I love. I got 24 hours today. I get to choose what I want to do. I'm going to try to fill it up with things that I love. Obviously, that comes back to bite me on the butt when life kicks in and stuff you don't want to do. In a world that you live where you get to pick and choose. Okay, today we're mixing and mastering music. Tomorrow we're writing another book, you know, and all of these things that we get to pick, like beautiful things. But the mundane comes into play when it's like, okay, now you got to go get the tire fixed. But it's like, hold on. Now I get to go get the tire fixed. Now I get to go meet with the person and do the things that you don't want to do, knowing that you get to return back to it, at least today, you know, and getting to choose what you create and not having that thing die with you. For me, stepping out and doing what I love, part of my story, podcasting and music and writing, like it came from the place of, what if the dream dies with you? And not even dies with you, but more, it ages with you. What if you're 70 and you want to finish that rap album? What if you're 75 and you wish you could have podcasted for a living full time? No, I was too scared. No, come on. Don't let it die with you. We're talking about death. Don't let your dreams die with you. Like, do it. Step out. Take a chance. Roll a dice, because nobody's going to do it for you. And I just want to encourage you. I want that to be, I believe in karma. I believe in reaping what you sow. I believe in the law of compensation, if you will. What you put out, you get back. So my music will continue to live, you know, and bless and inspire people. That's not even a fact. You know, 2 years after I'm gone, music could be pulled from all you know, music streaming platforms. Music streaming platforms could change, and it takes somebody to upload your catalog who don't know how. You know, I have a guy that we talk about, these leaders and people that mean a lot to you, Patrick Cook with BibleUFO.com, hundreds of thousands of pages in research about the paranormal in the Bible, about the supernatural in the Bible, the occult in the Bible, about dragons in the Bible, seances in the Bible, UFOs. And I mean, he's giving you scriptures, he's giving you books, he's giving you historical references of UFOs dating back to BC times that were ascribed in other foreign books, like this conglomeration of a website that I found early in my awakening. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I need to hear his interviews. I need to talk to this guy. And I started listening to all of his interviews. Like, wow, he's talking ufology, but he's a Christian, and he's not saying that they're demonic. Like, this guy is dope. His website's amazing. He dies. 2014, I think it is, 2015. He dies. His wife doesn't pay to have the domain in the hosting renewed, but she sells the domain because it was getting a lot of traffic. She sells it to a hotel company. They might have gave her $1,000. He sells it to her. She sells it to them, and now Patrick Cook's website with thousands and thousands of pages no longer exists. And for me, as somewhat of a devotee of this man's work, I owe it to him, and I owe it to others who are seekers to pay to have this man's website restored, to figure out how we can get on the back web and the dark web and find out, are there screenshots of those pages somewhere on the internet? You can't Google them, but there's ways to scrape them and find it. And I did, and I ended up paying out of my own pocket to have the website and this man's website restored in honor of this guy. There's the fear of you dying and your work is no longer remembered. Your book is out of print. You know, whatever it is that is a piece of you that echoes in this side of eternity that doesn't exist anymore. That's a fear too. The fear of not existing. Even if we're not cognitive of ourselves, or we're not conscious of what we shift into as TruthSeekah or Richie or whoever you are listening. You don't know the fact that you don't exist anymore. You go into oblivion, you know, whatever it is the fact that, well, I got something on earth where I'm still there. I'm still there. Like that enemy, that person that still lives in your brain, it still lives in your psyche, like rent free, or that picture or poster or whatever, like something is still, after you're gone, something lingers. This person's persona, this person's signature at the bottom of the artwork, like that person still lives through memories, through art, through something that's there. And the fear of that not existing, the fear of my art being taken down, or white magic not getting published because my wife doesn't know where it's at on the computer. You know, these things. Richie, I need to show you where this stuff is. You know, and you would hate to say that because, hey, you're talking about death, man. You're going to speak it into existence. There's all of that kind of stuff too, and you don't want to, but that's the person who we talked about who didn't say goodbye. Like, my art has to continue making money. These podcasts have to continue running years after. The book has to continue selling to support my family. You got to take care of that. Oh man, he didn't have his affairs in order, man. His family didn't even have money to bury him because he refused to think about it. No, don't talk to me about death. I'm living forever. Hey man, you got life insurance? Do you have a savings where you know how much it is to bury somebody? Like even a cheap funeral? Are you taking care? Oh, I don't want to talk about it, man. I'm gonna live forever. Man, you need to get your affairs in order, man. Every conversation could be your last. Remember that for me, that brings the awareness back to the now moment, to the breath. Always, I'm immediately back. Every time and it's not personal with anybody. Richie, every time we get done talking, Richie was a good ass dude, man. Enjoyed his friendship. Oh, I get to see him tomorrow too? Heck yeah. Richie, what up, man? We're not done yet, bro. We still gonna do our thing. My mom, my sister, my wife, me. I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? What do you think? Is that a weird way to live? Is that too much going on in the brain? Is that too much weight and stress to carry for one individual? What do you think about that?
I think it has a lot to do with the stories that people tell themselves. If your story is one where your story is going forward, independent of the interdependence, then you're good. If your story has to have, I got to make sure that I'm working with Bobby, even if I hate my job. Bobby's the person who makes everything worth it just because they make me laugh and then I escape from my problems into their laughter. You can be friends with Bobby, sure. Don't turn Bobby into an addiction. You know what I mean?
When Bobby's gone, it's like,
yeah, exactly. You got to find the people that fill you up and then fill up others from your overflow.
Yeah. It's being appreciative of Bobby, though. Bobby was a good dude, man.
Yes.
You took Bobby for granted, man.
Maybe that's the thing. You got to find the Bobbies in your life and say, hey, I really appreciate you. Hey, friends that I only talk to every once in a while. I'm going to go out of my way because we all been under this root stress. Survival means not much rest and digest till you find a good community. And then everybody can slow up for a minute. Celebrate.
That's it, man. That's it. Celebrate. Remember. Every day. I had a dream even last night that a good friend of mine died. It wasn't prophetic, in Jesus' name, but we were getting his affairs in order and getting ready to tell stories, and I just began to remember those stories that I told at his funeral in my dream last night. And telling those stories and thinking about that, I'm reminded of the friend, and I want to even do something. Right when the sea thing hit us at the beginning, he died. It wasn't from that; it was from other things. But it made it to where we couldn't have a funeral, or we couldn't even get together for beers and tell funny stories about the Joker. You know what I'm saying? Like a friend of mine's Mad Juggalo. Juggalos are about family. We don't even get to meet up one last time and not say our goodbyes to him or pay your last respects. Or I got a lot of stories I want to tell, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it makes you think, So guess what? I'm going to tell them stories while you're alive. I'm going to give you your roses while you're here. That's a big thing. It was something very beautiful. A rapper, Joyner Lucas, put out what would seem like a fanboy song for a rapper to do, paying homage to Will Smith from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And he went through his career and what it meant to Joyner. He wrote the rap song about, when I didn't have a family growing up and I escaped into your family on The Fresh Prince, of how a dad should treat his kids and to have food in the refrigerator. I lived vicariously through the television because of you, Will. Thank you, man, for that. Thank you for your rap album. Thank you for that movie. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. And the dude did a rap song on it, which would seem corny in the hip hop, but it was a beautiful song, and it was just echoing the sentiment of give people roses while they're here, because we all bring our roses to the funeral. Throw your rose on the casket, order roses to be next to the casket. So hold on, save them damn roses and give it to the person while they're here. Man, listen, you inspired me. You mean a lot to me, and keep it real with the individual, and while they can appreciate it, right? I think we should.
It's community, common unity.
Co-unity, yeah. Common unity. We're gonna go ahead and end this episode, but I want to end it with a new song. I want to play a new song for those of you who hung out and stuck to the end of this episode. For those of you who like my music and want to hear something new, this is a new song that is going to be on White Magic, which is available for pre-order right now at TruthSeekah.com. I want to play this song, and I think it's fitting for the conversation, especially when Richie comes in and we start talking about being channels for whatever it is that you're parroting, channels for whatever ideas that you open up yourself to through meditation, to very literally trying to channel beings and let them speak through you. There's many different ways as you can become a channel for ideas and empathy and love. I'm gonna be a channel for love. I'm gonna be a channel for God. For Jesus is gonna speak to me. It's not I that speaks, but it's the Lord speaking through me to you. I speak as an oracle of God, right? We're channels of this collective, beautiful energy, and we get to pick and choose, and we can cut off channels. We can say that's a bad channel. I'm not letting those emotions come through me and project them on you through my heart space. I'm not going to be the channel for negativity. I'm not going to be a channel for despair. I want to be a channel for hope, of creativity and exploration at the very least. This is a new song on the new album entitled Channels, featuring Illuminati Congo and Richie ZXY, who's in chat with me right now. Y'all check it out. Hope y'all like it. We're going to vibe to it.
Much like television, radio receiver, the brain and body are equipped with supernatural abilities to tune in and channel intelligence from other realms of reality. The human body is a consciousness receiver connecting to different channels. There are disciplines, practices, and techniques found throughout the world specifically designed to adjust the perception and allow access to these advanced and exciting states of consciousness. Please allow yourself in this moment to tune into your body system physically and energetically. The entire body system is beginning to vibrate around you. Maintain your resonance with the Creator. Breathe in through this now into what the world brings you next.
Yeah, the seasons change and the wind blows. A distant voice in my inner ear, an echo. It beckons for me to shut the blinds and sit in silence. A message that's received through clairvoyance, a sacred science. Communicate, spirits speak to mortal man. An antenna from fifth dimension, foreign land. An inspiration, or yet a vision in the night. An apparition, let it flow, try not to fight. Let you discern their intention. Benevolent beings, not of matter but of the spirit. Blessed with the sighting, automatic writing. I trained to be a medium, practice the art of scrying.
Excellent work. You're doing great.
You're doing great.
What kind of communications are you feeling coming through? Communication coming. Keep going. Keep going.
Dear Father entity, healer Father deity, pervaded sensory. I let the spirit enter me, shrouded in a mystery. Downloads and epiphanies, occupy the frequency, personify the energy.
Plugged up to the stream, plugged up to the outlet. Not distracted by your name. Hear the voice of the silence, message been received. They off the when they doubted. 45-degree beam of sound light came down to crowning. On that mycelium, not psychic medium. I'm a large processing trillions bits of data received from stars in my reptilian brain, frontal cortex in my heart, solar plexus, navel, every neck, the dots and letters bars. Like Noah with the ark, Matthew, Luke, John, and Mark. Futures on the ark, them blades cutting sharp. Source speak to me and through me on that Tahuti and Rumi. Tuning into the 5D movie, job provide truly successes and messages. Divested the vestiges of the wretched and desolate through our connection with endlessness. Not cable on demand, but I channel mad glyphs. Like emerald tablets, script the Abraham hits.
We commonly are observing around us different channeling states every day. The artist channels the art, sculptor channeling the creation. The athlete channels the sport, a performer channeling a role. The dancer channels the dance,
A bricklayer channeling a building.
the creator channels the creation. While you are connecting with yourself in resonance.
Dear Father entity, healer Father deity, pervaded sensory. I let the spirit enter me, shrouded in a mystery. Downloads and epiphanies, occupy the frequency, personify the energy.
Know that when you move through gratitude, you're bringing forward an energy that is larger than measurability. This is channeling. Your name is a channel you were given. The area you live has a name that is its channel. Every one of us lives in a different channel of reality. 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 Remember to breathe.
Yes and amen. As it is, so it was. myself, TruthSeekah, featuring Illuminati Congo and Richie ZXY. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It was awesome to connect with you on a song for the first time, Richie, and we may do some more collaborations and experiments in the future, man, with some music. So that was fun.
Gratitude. Yes, super down. Yes and amen.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, that album is available for pre-order for autographed copies and a sticker pack, and getting the audio pretty much as soon as it's done. You'll get it before the street date. But I finished the last song yesterday, I believe. Got to drag everything in, just kind of double check. But other than that, it's going to be sent out to all of the pre-orders, people who do the pre-order there, and all the patrons as well. If you're a patron, like, most of those songs are already there, maybe not mastered, maybe not mixed, maybe some changes in it, so it may not be the final audio, maybe it was waiting on a feature or whatever. But Patreon, you've had some of those songs a year. I got to be honest with you, you've had some of these songs I've been working on for like a year and a half. Like, they've been out a long time, but they've just been for the people who helped create it, the patrons, supporters. Thank you, guys. Go there to check it out, get you an autographed copy. TruthSeekah.com, and it's going to be out very soon. I've been saying it for a while. We got a street date. Listen, the last song was just finished. I'm going to make sure today, and I'll share it with you guys. Thank you for believing in my work. Thank you for supporting any way you do. Many different ways to support. Obviously, I've been talking about Patreon and how this is listener funded, listener supported. People don't make a lot of money off the music anymore. It's just is what it is. You know, you got to do it for the love. You got to do it for the art. And when people get behind you because they love it, they resonate with it, they feel it, they want to support. And so you got to give them ways to support. And Patreon is the best way to partner and support and make it fun, because there's a lot of perks. You get access to a lot of cool stuff. Also, everything else is at my website. I've mentioned my book. I mentioned our retreat coming up. I mentioned a program that I'm launching. There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff that you can do to support. You know, Michael Goddart talked about, like, you can't sell spirituality. I could sell a song. Right? You can't sell meditation. I could sell a custom guided meditation where we hired and paid voice actors. And there's ambience and there's sound effects. You can't sell spiritual training. I could sell you an 8-week program where I'll work with you for 8 weeks. There's different ways you can support. And for those creatives out there, for those of you who are wanting to create and want to support yourself off of your creativity, whatever's in you, get it out, manifest it, create it. And I guarantee you, if it helped you, no matter how weird it is, maybe the weirder the better, not always, but if it helped you, it would definitely help somebody else. So articulate your journey. Michael is sharing these books on how his spirituality and past lives and the power of now has helped him. What has helped you? Articulate it, get it out, because you can help somebody out there. The world needs it. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. I just happen to interview those people and pick their brains. And I got my piece and I do my thing too. Richie has his. We all have our part. Play your part, play your role, know your position, keep it up. Listen, we're going to be doing the School of the Mystics tonight. If you're a patron at any level, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be hanging out on there. Not sure what we're going to do. Not sure what we're going to talk about. We talked about aliens and scenarios and what they could be. And we had fun doing that. We may do breath work, may pray, may do all of it. But if you're looking for community, you want to hang out, there's many ways where you can do that. Send me an email, drop me a line, let me know how much you love the podcast, how much the music and everything's resonating with you. A little goes a long way. Thank you guys. Peace and shalom. We'll do it again. Peace, peace.
Your will so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.